Welcome to Fire Your Doctor, episode 13.
Hello.
Hey, you know us by now, so we'll skip the intro.
You know us by now. If not, go back to the first episode and start at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. What do we got?
Well, today we have an episode called Gut Check, and it's when blind faith replaces biology, blind faith in the system, the medical system. Why health sovereignty starts in the gut and ends with discernment.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the question that I kind of want to answer myself, but I'll have you answer it first and we'll see if we agree.
Okay.
What's wrong with the phrase, trust the science?
It's a religion.
Say more.
Trust the science means to not question the science, and science, the nature of science is question and test the hypothesis.
Yes. And then
retest,
verify, see if another lab or another person can recreate those results.
Yes, it must be tested, it must be verified, it must be updated.
Subjected to continual scrutiny.
Subject to continual scrutiny.
You know what else is interesting about science is that science goes in these waves where actually they say physics advances one funeral at a time. And what they mean is that basically somebody will come up with a new idea. That new idea hopefully it does a little bit better job explaining reality than the previous generation. And then that person or whoever, that department, builds an entire construct around that idea. And they just hang on to it and fight it till the bitter end. And then when they die, somebody's like, well, hey, what if you were right about this, but maybe you weren't quite right about these other things? And then all of a sudden science improves.
Yes.
And so the problem is what we see in that is that science can become calcified because it's like, God bless your string theory, but you've built an entire career around string theory. What if string theory just ain't it anymore? Then all of a sudden you're not getting speaking engagements, you're not selling your book, you're not getting grant money, and all of a sudden you're not relevant.
Yes, and you're incentivized to keep up that mockery.
Yeah, and so people that are in these kind of science positions, they would be incentivized for you to trust the science that they did yesterday, but they would be also incentivized to keep you from doing new science that might call their legacy into question.
Correct. And we also see that it's become so political, right? So it depends on who the head of the administration of that university is, who's in office at that particular time, because then that determines what kind of grants they're going to give out, right? Mm-hmm. So one year it could be, hey, we need to do HIV research and we're only approving grants towards HIV research. Okay, now we're going to try to go after, flu research or, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. It'll just shift for whatever the time is. And that's what we found, especially during the pandemic, was everybody was getting grants based on pandemic related research.
Right. And the problem with that is that even if we have this just logical process of science that we are enjoined and just not enjoined, but encouraged to or I would say coerced to trust, is what you describe is that the direction that the scientific ship is sailing is determined by very unscientific things, like political climate, like human emotion, human fear, very potentially irrational forces are steering the ship that is supposed to be this just beautiful logic of science.
Well put.
A rational car driven by very irrational people is an irrational outcome.
Mm-hmm. Why are most Americans not in robust health? That was very much revealed during the pandemic because the people that had the worst outcomes were in poor metabolic health. What do we mean by metabolic health? Diabetes, obesity, heart disease, blood sugar imbalance.
Leading to inflammation.
Yes, chronic inflammation.
I think
all of those things.
Partly due to, I would say, a misguided compassion, because early on in the pandemic, it was just like, hey, listen, some of these preventable health conditions and things like that, those are statistically you're gonna have a bad time with COVID if you're in these kind of brackets. Now, granted, you can't control your age, but you can't control your age, but you can control your metabolic health. You can control, like, hey, I'm gonna lose a little bit of weight. Hey, I'm gonna exercise more. I'm gonna get my cardio up. I'm gonna do these things. I'm gonna choose different foods.
I'm gonna deal with my feelings that are uncomfortable.
We did a lot in the last one.
Yes.
Now, the problem is that it was labeled uncompassionate to simply tell people, like, hey, listen, you're not very healthy. Like, I don't think anybody who's married, this is a shout out to the men, there's certain things that you don't really want to talk about in a relationship with somebody you love. And like physical health can be one of those things where it's just like, hey, I love you, and collectively though, if there is something that's reached the order of, or this is a medical problem, at some point, if we can't tell like half of our society that, like, listen, this is a medical issue. This isn't just a few vanity pounds. And if we don't solve this, you're going to be at a much higher risk of a bad outcome for this disease.
This might be a completely different episode because we have a lot of episodes we wanted to talk about with relationships and things like that. But let's give them a little taste of what that would look like to encourage our husbands and wives when we see that they are hurting or suffering or harming their health in a unhealthy way.
Okay, sure.
What would be a way as a husband that you might encourage me to be healthier?
Number one, if I first was like kind of wondering if this is a problem, I wouldn't want to be part of the problem. Mm-hmm. And so that's like leading from the front. So it's like, if hey man, I hit my 5K goal, like rock on, I'm going to go celebrate, have some food. Like, I like milkshakes, mm-hmm. I'm going to have a milkshake or just something like that. If I'm hitting my goal or whatever, I might think twice about having that kind of celebratory food if I feel like it's going to cause you trouble, if I'm already kind of concerned about where you're at. So I'm going to really lead from the front in terms of like what I'm choosing for myself and the kids. So that would be a level 1 kind of thing. Like, even if I feel like I could afford it with my kind of diet and meal plan, I wouldn't want to put you in a position where I was making you compromised.
That is huge. There are so many people that we encounter where one spouse is on board with something and the other spouse is just absolutely not. And it makes it very difficult, and it almost starts to create a space and a rift in between the partners. So level 2.
Level 2 would be coming alongside, leading mm-hmm. from the front. Like, what are we doing this weekend? Mm-hmm. Like, if I'm like, well, whatever, dude, I hit my 5 a.m. Jocko Willink, like, gym workout 6 days a week. Now it's whatever, it's the weekend. The math is weird, but like, gym bro, right? Math isn't going to get you gains. No, but, I've hit my gains or whatever. And now it's like, whatever, dude, I'm going to sit down and watch the game or whatever. I don't really watch sports, but you know what I mean? I wouldn't really be leading from example there.
So would you be like, hey, hon, let's go for a walk?
I would engage you with things that you like to do to mm-hmm. call you to like your best self. Mm-hmm. Like, some of that is like, where are we going out on a date? Are we like sitting on our butts and watching a movie? Or are we going to doing something that, maybe you like, hey, there's this hike. I don't normally like a hike unless it's a multi-day backpacking trip and it's like kind of brutal. But okay. Anyway.
Yes.
But I'd go on a hike with her.
We call those death marches.
She calls it a death march.
I like to be more leisurely about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that'd be a level 2.
Level 3 would be.
I mean, at some point you've got to talk about it, and just really just be like, hey, like, is this a problem? Like, what's going on? And also come from a place of like, how can I help you?
Compassion too. They might be dealing with the loss of a family member, or they might be dealing with stress at work that they're not processing. And it's interesting how much stress relief I get from working out. And it's the first thing that I will drop when I get really stressed.
That's true. Yeah. And so I would just say, and then it's like, what do you need? In that conversation, it's not like, it's like, hey, listen, like, this is something that when we got married, we had talked about and we agreed was important to us. And I'm like worried about this. And then, what usually comes up is like, maybe I'm busy at work. Maybe it's about time. Hey, I would need you to wake up an hour early, get the kids ready for school, and then I would have time to work out. And so always be prepared for like give and take, and not in kind of a mean way, like, well, I'll work out when you do everything, but as long as people are in good faith, and just be prepared for an uncomfortable conversation. Like, I don't want to get told I'm fat. Like,
for the record, I've never said that to him.
No, I said it to myself, but
he can say it to himself if he wants to.
Yeah.
I usually just try to give words of encouragement around that, and just, hey, you know what? I love you no matter what. And Rich has loved me through all shapes and sizes, and pregnancy and not pregnancy, and all sorts of things. And he's always been very encouraging and helping me to meet a goal. But I also had to come to him and tell him the support that I needed. I didn't just assume that he knew.
Yeah. And some of that were things that just required stuff of me. Like, hey, what kind of foods am I cooking? Like, what kind of foods are getting brought into the house? Like, I can't bring in all my treats and be like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like, and then also, am I making time in the family schedule, or kind of like, okay, well, I really wanted to see you on Tuesday night, but now you're late working out. Yeah. So it's like, okay.
Yeah.
So there's a give and take.
There's more to this. But let's kind of move on here. Mm-hmm. When we talk about being unhealthy and eating those things, we see obviously that it starts to lead to poor gut health, which eventually then leads to a weakened immune system over time. So really, we're going to talk about that connection with the immune system and gut health. And there's some research about the connection between the microbiome and pandemic outcomes. And we're going to talk about fevers too. So
okay,
I think let's talk about those things. I've got a quote to start us off. If you don't have the book, you should get it.
What's wrong with you? Looks
like this.
Yeah.
Aside from the author's strip on the front, we're in chapter 7, microbiome. And the microbiome is the makeup of everything that's in our gut, right? I'm trying to give the summary. Bacteria and viruses and all sorts of things.
Fungi.
And how it interacts with our immune system and how it interacts with our neurotransmitters. And we thought the gut was so important that we actually wrote 3 chapters on it. And
it took too long.
But we broke it down to 101, 201, 301. So we're in 301. This is our advanced level. We have some great stories in there. Most Americans are not in robust physical health.
Yeah.
We're quoting now. In fact, the majority of Americans have terrible personal health. I'm not saying this to be mean, but here are some of the facts we need to face. Over 70% of Americans are either overweight or obese. That's from the National Institute of Health and the CDC. 1 in 3 Americans have diabetes or prediabetes. Half of American adults have high blood pressure. Whoa. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm. So that would be, let's just say 70% of American adults are unhealthy.
Yes. There's we got a little punchy in this chapter here.
Well, it's a lot of hard truths. And so it was time to just really just like, we got to rip this Band-Aid off.
Yes. And I love this quote. We said, I am responsible for my own health. It says, repeat after me. I am responsible for my own health. Nobody cares as much about my health as I do. If I won't fight for my health, nobody else will. Even if it's not my fault, I take responsibility anyway. Okay, good talk.
That was fun.
We were punchy.
Yeah.
Obesity worsens the outcomes of everything.
Well, let's talk about this actually. So this is something that actually did have something to do with the pandemic, because we have half the country saying, don't you dare tell me I'm fat. Mm-hmm. And then the other half of the country saying, don't you dare tell me what to do about COVID. Mm-hmm. Right? And these are 2 actually completely incompatible worldviews.
Yes.
In one, it's kind of like, if I'm not going to take responsibility And which is like, well, the government should do something about it. The doctor should do something about it. The CDC should do something about it. Then what are they going to do about it is they're going to control. When we give up responsibility and we're like, well, it's not my fault, somebody else fix it. When we give up that responsibility, we also give up that ultimate control. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, there were a lot of people that were on the government don't tell me what to do side, but I would actually be a little bit hard on them by saying, like, listen, if you are going to be off the grid and out of their control, then you need to actually take proactive measures to make yourself not need what they have. And so one thing we did see in the pandemic was there was a lot of people that were angry and railing against the kind of pandemic lockdowns and the this and the that and the mandates and all these things. And at the same time, we're taking zero personal responsibility for their physical health.
Okay, so you're jumping ahead.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's a fun quote. Are you going to read it now?
Yes, we need to stop taking medical advice from government and news media that are bought and paid for by fast food and drug makers.
Oh, that's not where I was going.
Okay.
I was going to the other.
As a country, we need to make sure that these corrupt entities are never allowed to coerce the public by lockdowns and mandates again. But our main focus must still be improving our personal wellness. You can't change the system if you're dependent on the system. You can't be independent of the broken healthcare system if you're unhealthy. There's something even more fundamental than political change that must occur. The fastest way to break free of the broken system is to build strong immune systems by getting healthy. This is done in several ways. Part of doing this is exposing our immune system to pathogens. Humans are social creatures, and we build immunity by interacting with people and their germs.
Right. So this is exactly what I mean, is that you are not going to be able to be free of a system if you are dependent on that system.
Yes, absolutely.
And if you're dependent on it, you can't change it. It's like, if I need a pacemaker, I can't just take that thing out and just be like, I don't want this anymore.
Right. You now have to be managed by the system.
Right.
That manages them.
Right.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah.
So back to how do we do that?
Okay, yeah, let's
Going
get
back to the gut. So there's associations, this is a quote, associations between, and not my quote, a quote from a journal, associations between gut microbiota composition levels of levels of cytokines and inflammatory markers in patients with the thing suggests that gut microbiome is involved in the magnitude of the thing's severity. So the pandemic.
Yeah, we're having to censor ourselves because...
Yeah, possibly via modulating host immune responses. Furthermore, the gut microbiota, dysbiosis, that means an upsetting of the gut flora, after disease resolution could contribute to persistent symptoms, highlighting a need to understand how gut microorganisms are involved in inflammation and pandemic-like diseases.
Right.
Okay.
So let's put that into English. Do you want to do it or you want me to?
Please do it.
Okay. What it means that my gut microbiome and the quality of the gut microbes that I have are going to greatly influence how I would make it through a pandemic disease.
Yep. I liked your bullet points here. Read them. Those were good.
The disease kills by causing runaway. Okay, here. The disease kills by causing runaway inflammation. 70% of the country could significantly reduce their risk through simple diet and lifestyle changes.
I think those are the points.
So that's the takeaway. But how that works is if your body is already kind of almost at carrying capacity of how much inflammation you can deal with, like your Tuesday, what if we just put a 80 out of 100 on your inflammation level because of your gut health and your, like your pre-existing health conditions? If you're already at 80% of your maximum capacity, and then all of a sudden you add on a pandemic, now you're over capacity, right? What we'd rather see is your kind of daily inflammation at maybe 20% capacity. And then when you have a stressor that's added to that, ooh, you went from 20 to 40 instead of 20 to 100. And now all of a sudden you're literally trust falling on a system that doesn't work.
Yes. So let's teach you about what should happen. When you get sick, you're actually supposed to get a fever, and fevers are good. Yes, you heard it here. Fevers are good. Despite what pain reliever companies might tell you, we're supposed to have fevers. Now, what's the exception in baby newborns or fevers where you're like, I have no idea where this came from? But when we're talking about, oh, you've got a bacterial infection or viral infection and your body temperature starts to go up, this is absolutely what your body is supposed to do. And so what we would advise during the pandemic was to modulate the fever. So fevers under 104 degrees Fahrenheit or 40 degrees Celsius are a mark of a healthy immune system when there's an infection involved. And so some of the therapies we would use for that would be hydrotherapy.
What's hydrotherapy?
Hot and cold contrasts of water. So when my kids get sick, as long as they're not going over 104, I start treating their fevers by putting them in a warm bath, for example, and try to modulate their fever, keep it around 102, because that's a nice burn. So you can create something called heat shock proteins, which go after and help the immune system become more robust to go kill things off.
Right. So the point is that previously, almost like germ theory, it was so somewhat related to germ theory, how it's like, well, germs are everywhere, we got to kill them, and that's how we're going to get better. There's this idea of, well, when I am sick, I have a fever. If I get rid of the fever, I'm going to stop being sick. And it's like, no, the fever is not a side effect. The fever is actually related to part of how your body's trying to get rid of the sickness. Mm-hmm. So granted, you can have too much of a good thing, but within reason, mounting a fever means that your immune system is working, and that is part of how your body is trying to fight it off. So if I'm spending my entire life running from fevers, I'm actually slowing down how quickly I can heal, and I'm lowering my ability to fight off infection.
The most important thing with fevers is to be well hydrated with electrolytes and to make sure that you're not dehydrating. That's a huge thing especially with kids. One of the number one reasons they have to go into the hospital with fevers is they become dehydrated even easier than adults. And really what they need is an IV with fluids. But
Which could just be generic, just a generic fluid.
Exactly. Just saline or lactated ringers.
Yeah.
However, all of that can be avoided by making sure that your kids are being hydrated, specifically with electrolytes. So, they make all sorts of brands of electrolytes now, but my point is we have lost this ability to know what normal is because the drug companies, food companies, all of these things, and the advertising is what's deciding what's healthy and not what's actually healthy for bodies.
Right.
And then they get sick, they get an ear infection, give them antibiotics. Well, those are going to blow out your gut microbiota, and you're going to have risk factors for other things that we discussed in previous episodes.
Right.
Which were banned.
I think the point is that there's a divergence between what feels good and what is good. Mm-hmm. Fevers do not feel good, but if the body's doing it, it's very prideful to assume that, well, it's doing this thing. I don't understand why. I don't like it. Make it stop.
There's also the connection going back to gut health that weakened immune systems can't mount proper fevers. This is related to poor gut health. There's signals that happen in healthy guts that give the body the signal to mount the fever too. So they have a relationship with each other.
Yes. Well, and if having this gut dysbiosis, so basically if I'm eating an unhealthy diet all the time and I have all these unhealthy gut microbes that are feeding on the unhealthy food that I'm eating, and that's going to mean that my body is spending significant immune resources fighting the just kind of low grade infection that I have in my gut all the time anyway from just eating bad food.
Yes.
And so that's taking resources off of defeating a flu or defeating a pandemic.
Yes. So we're going to go into something pretty controversial. We're going to have to be really careful about our wording and
Which
just
the nicotinoid receptors?
No.
Oh, even better.
Yes. And so we're going to use some, other words aside from what we want to say.
We're speaking in code so the feds don't nail us.
No, it's not even the feds. It's YouTube.
The tech even worse.
The tech overlords.
The tech overlords.
So if you're listening to this and for some reason you don't get this episode, we are on Spotify. Read the book. We have more details. Obviously, get the book. Okay. This is the quote. From the time we were little, we were told that the shots, the pokies. Oh, I did it.
Why is it looking at me, though? You're making duck hands.
Okay. I turned it off.
Okay.
From the time we were little, we were told that the shots are safe and effective. If that's a scientific fact, there must be a scientific reason why. Otherwise, it's religion and not science.
Don't get me wrong. We like faith. I'm a man of faith. You're a woman of faith. We like faith. We are very picky and choosy on what we put our faith in. Mm-hmm. And that's been, largely proven out by results of our life.
Yes. I believe in God.
Yes.
So I'm okay with faith, but I'm very careful with who and
what gets led into that faith.
I put religious faith in. I won't try to prove God to you, but that is one place I don't have a problem putting faith in. However, I don't have faith in science because faith is anti-scientific. Science is supposed to be the opposite of faith. Faith trusts and believes. On the other hand, science is about questioning, testing, looking for bias, retesting, and verifying previous tests. We're told that the shots are science, and then we're told that we must trust the science. Science is the unbiased and systematic study of how and why. Faith trusts. Science wants us to know why and how. Therefore, trust the science is a religious statement of faith. That is very unscientific. Science asks how, why, prove it, and prove it again. End quote.
Awesome. I love that quote. It's almost like
perfect. It sums it up.
Yeah.
It sums it up. And it's worth repeating because as we're talking about this again, we're going into safe and effective.
Can I ask you a question?
Training the immune system.
I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
If I told you, so you're a scientist.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm a lady scientist.
You're a lady scientist, a very attractive one.
Thanthis you.
If you haven't watched this is my wife. Like it's
all good.
It's not weird. No, or it is weird, but it's okay. Anyway, let's get back to the point. Imagine, okay, you're a researcher and around the time of the pandemic.
Yes.
And you just kind of turn on the news and all you see are people that did not trust the science being portrayed in a negative light, maybe losing their job, maybe losing opportunities, things like that, having social trouble, having protesters out in the street trying to physically harm them. Is that going to introduce a bias to you, whether even you want to or not?
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
You better just be a good person and trust the science or you're fired and we're going to roast your entire career.
Well, I was thinking also this goes with people who are picked to be on these large juries and how they're not allowed to watch TV. They can't watch the news. They can't actually live in the main world because they don't want that bias to be
like in a high profile trial.
In a high profile trial. It's like
Sure.
They want to make sure that they're trying to have the most unbiased information possible and just listen
Right.
to the facts.
But in contrast, we have in science, it's kind of hard to earn a living sometimes unless you're connected to a major university
Mm-hmm.
or a government funded study or a pharmaceutical or a business funded study. Sometimes it can be really hard and you've worked your entire career, 20 or 30 years. And then all of a sudden you get to this point and there's this one thing where it's like, if you have an inconvenient test result.
Yes. I have a friend who when they were in medical school, they were doing research on a specific herb, you know, this story, and the results were not very good towards the herb, but this is a traditionally used herb. It should show these results that we were expecting to see based on our clinical experience. And he researched into it more and found out they were using the wrong species of herb that has nothing to do with the immune system. So he went to the director and he's pointed this fact out.
You need to change this herb because this study is fundamentally flawed.
It's flawed. You and I both know that you need to use this species in order for it to work. And the director politely asked him to shut his mouth. Don't talk about that. We have to publish an article. We're getting funding from so-and-so. And when he tried to push it, he was further reprimanded.
Right. And
I don't want to call him out further than that, but
tacitly told, like, do you want to have a future here or not?
Do you want to have a future here or not? Shut your mouth.
Right. So let's just break this down. So what you're saying is there was a scientific study where they were trying to test a natural treatment. And one of the people studying for their doctorate realized that the type of the herb that they were testing was actually the wrong variety to even possibly get the outcome that they were trying to achieve.
Correct.
And so that would mean that whoever designed the study and then brought that to his superiors, when he brought that up the food chain, he was told, you know, be quiet or you're out of the program. And then not only that, but what that means is that there was a level of intentionality that they wanted this study to show that the natural treatment didn't work.
Yes, because they wanted the funding more than they wanted the truth.
Right, because if the natural treatment doesn't work, then all of a sudden we could study a drug treatment.
Correct.
And then all of a sudden there's a pharmaceutical company involved that might have a couple billion on the line to... I mean, $1 billion, not bilirubin, in case anybody was wondering.
But this brings me to my point. It's like there's studies that are being funded to fail purposely to create bias.
Gotcha.
Which is sad.
The natural treatment didn't work. The cheaper treatment didn't work. The already...
proven for over 1,000 years, safe, didn't work.
Yeah, so the basic treatment didn't work. Now we need to study this new novel advanced treatment.
And the funding for this, I don't know who was funding it. I couldn't tell you that part of it. Could have had nefarious reasons why they were doing that to try to prove, oh, we need this more expensive thing, and these natural things are fake. Which ultimately harms the reputation of our medicine, which really makes me sad. But
also it's most drugs. I mean, now we have synthetic drugs, but there's a lot of really powerful pharmaceutical drugs that were originally derived from plants.
Totally.
And so to ignore plant medicine, like, is to ignore medicine.
Correct.
So, I mean, like digoxin, salicylic acid. There's so many things that are from, everything's from a plant.
So with that kind of goes... with the pandemic type illnesses and what was found there, and this whole trademarked campaign of safe and effective, and the bias that was available within the larger scientific community, why wouldn't they do that for other injectable items? Why wouldn't they do the same? Why wouldn't they try to push an agenda around those other things too?
I guess let's talk about just safe and effective in general. Like, do we have time to break this down?
Yeah, actually, we do. We have about 10
I might
minutes.
step on the quote. Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
well,
no, we don't have a quote, but I think you need to go exactly where that is.
Well, okay, so let's talk about safe and effective. There's different types of safe and effective. Like there's, let's give me an example of something that is inherently safe and effective.
Planes
is a great example of something that is not inherently safe and effective.
Okay.
Airplanes I don't mean like the Great Plains of the United States. Those are beautiful. Like, let's get the buffalo back. No, but, or like I'm plain yogurt.
Yes, okay.
No, airplanes. Airplanes are safe and effective because they are rigorously tested and they are retested. And if there is any kind of question about the safety of an airplane, like they might, well, of course, they're going to take that specific airplane off of kind of, say, public use, but they might even legally ground every single other airplane like it until they figure out why and how to fix it. Mm-hmm. So airplanes are not intrinsically safe. Air travel has become extremely safe because we watch it like a hawk. If there's any issue ever, we don't just ground that plane, we ground that entire fleet of airplanes. Mm-hmm. Right? And so, and then also the people that fly the plane, the people that get on the plane, there's all sorts of checks, and, TSA is terrible, but whatever.
Bless them.
God bless them. We love you, TSA. Anyway, don't put me on a no-fly list. No, planes are safe insofar as they are rigorously tested. They are not inherently safe.
Yes, I agree.
And so when we're told that certain medical treatments are safe and effective, what they're trying to tell us, what they want us to believe, seems to be that these things are inherently safe. It is as safe as drinking a glass of water that didn't come from Flint, Michigan. Right? That this is just safe and effective means of hydration. Mm-hmm. What we're actually finding that the real truth is that these treatments are safe and effective in the way that an airplane is safe and effective.
Yeah. So no medical treatment is automatically safe
and effective.
That's right. Just none.
Now, if those treatments were safe and effective and inherently safe and effective, then you'd never see adverse events. You would never see one that didn't make it through testing, because obviously, this technology is inherently safe and effective. So somewhere in the book we have the percentages of ones that actually fail safety testing.
Yeah. Certain injections over the history. A
lot of them fail this decade-long testing procedure.
Okay. There's a couple things in here, and we come with papers. This is all backed up. We see that, for example, adverse events following, I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word.
An adverse event?
Following...
it was adverse weather conditions. That wasn't caused by cloud seeding in Texas. I can't help myself. I'm like, I'll get the tin and the hat.
Yes, just the thing that gets in that they give kids when they're trying to get into school.
A booster chair?
Yes, exactly. For height reasons. Okay.
Yeah, a booster seat in the car.
So they do occur, but they're often underreported or overlooked. So this is a quote, the scientific knowledge about AEFIs, okay, so the first part of that is adverse events following something that starts with an I, is limited because their notification is frequently overlooked by physicians, under notification, and because the available adverse event data frequently show only temporal relationships between that particular thing and the onset of an adverse event. So they're not tracking it correctly. Okay, so that's a huge piece of it. But here's the following reactions that we saw from...
The adverse events are not zero, though.
They're not zero. So
what you're saying is that we have a headwind in terms of reporting, that potential AEs are underreported.
Yes.
But even with the underreporting, they're still not zero.
And there's also been this training within medical programs of it's safe and effective, it's safe and effective, it's safe and effective. Don't question it. But most doctors,
or will ruin your life,
including myself, were not trained virologists. So what happened during the pandemic was I knew some of this, but had to actually go train myself to figure out exactly how are they testing certain things. Like, how is that happening? So what assumptions are we making? We assume that all of these things undergo long-term testing over a decade or more. Is that true or false?
We tend to assume that, but that's not always the case.
But that's not always the case. Training the immune system assumes that it will learn the right lesson from our training. So that's another assumption.
Right. Like if I inject this weakened form of this thing, I'm going to teach the immune system a lesson, and that lesson is going to result in it learning and encoding what I want it to encode.
Yes, and furthermore on that one.
But what if it encodes something else that I didn't intend?
Yeah, it assumes that our immune system will properly apply what is learned at the right time and in the right way.
Yeah.
So the timing of it assumes that we know what to train the immune system to focus on. So if we're giving a bunch of things at one time, who's to say it's not going to really hyper focus on this one thing, which leads to an adverse event?
Right.
Right? It also assumes that our training won't make our immune systems specialists at the expense of general capacity. Say more about that.
Well, okay, let's suppose we did, you spent 6 figures on a college education and you studied the proverbial like underwater basket weaving, and you're like, this is it. This is it.
The future.
This is the future. This is it. All of a sudden AI comes out with a basket weaving chatbot. And
underwater.
It's got to be underwater.
Yes.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden your career hopes are dashed. Mm-hmm. So in the same way, spending a bunch of resources and time to train an immune system to respond in a certain way to a certain thing, you might be just trading resources. Mm-hmm. So it's like you're just absolutely on the lookout for hepatitis B.
But you can't handle a cold.
Or you're so just looking out for some of these, big nasty diseases that you really just don't do that well with
autoimmune disease, pollen, peanuts.
Well, but there's another way. It's just like if we exposed, just take an analogy here. If we were like, listen, kid, and you had your young infant, the world's a scary place and you got to get ready for all the bad stuff in the world. And you just sat them down and had them watch everything from World War I, World War II to remember the 48-hour mysteries where it's like
totally awful,
awful, just kind of, serial killer, whatever.
Yeah.
And just all this stuff. And just like, listen, kid,
Justice Files.
The world gets ugly. You got to know about this stuff. Yeah. And it's just like, already you're just like, my brother in Christ, you're a monster. Why would you ever force a kid to see all of the ugliness in the world? You're going to traumatize that young mind for life.
Well, you're going to traumatize that immune system if you give them that much at once.
What if I expose this immune system to completely safe? Oh, it did it. What if I expose that young infant immune system to completely harmless, they won't directly hurt them, but all of the worst kind of diseases in the world, right? You could see that kid that was exposed to all the kind of violence and potential violence and stuff, even though it's it's not going to jump through the TV set and get him. But his mind is traumatized and he's sitting there with PTSD.
Okay.
Is it possible that an immune system could get a form of PTSD where it's just I'm just looking at that door waiting for, the worst disease in the world to just blast through any moment?
Yes. One little final point. I agree with you. And
okay.
I have that same question. We're just asking questions here.
I got a cat mug. It's question time.
It's just questions. We're just asking questions. There's some research I found that was really interesting that they studied a group of people that developed rheumatoid arthritis, like a quick onset rheumatoid arthritis, after they had a specific treatment. Okay. And it's a very common treatment. Say if you step on a rusty nail, it's that one. So it's a treatment that you might get to help prevent an infection after stepping on a rusty nail. So it's that treatment.
Sure.
What they found was if they had an overgrowth of the bacteria Prevotella coprii, they had a higher likelihood to get rheumatoid arthritis.
Wait a minute. So you're saying that there's a certain bacterial infection that would be kind of the combining with a medical intervention, shall we say, a shot, and that those two together could cause an increased signal.
Yes, and they actually have shown that cleaning out the gut actually then set back the autoimmune response.
Of RA.
Yes.
So, but that's actually something. So in science, what we're trying to do is we're trying to isolate, kind of subject from, like control groups and all this stuff. We're trying to isolate and study one thing at a time. But as our friends, B and H are known to say, is that you're dealing with a complex system. And so you could study that rusty nail medical intervention in isolation with healthy subjects and like whatever. Hey, this is great, solved our problem, nothing else. But then all of a sudden you introduce this bacteria that I don't know if I've ever heard of. Well, I guess I did because I edited the book, but that's not a household name. And then all of a sudden you get some kind of a novel thing pop up.
Totally.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. So we know, and this was kind of our point here in this section, was that any drug will work in your body, but it might work differently for that person. It's not, it could be totally fine in one person and totally not fine in another person. It could be fine in a person who has a unremarkable family history, and it can trigger it something in somebody who has a family history of it. Right. And then that, obviously, poor gut health is showing that it can actually make these products less safe and less effective.
Okay.
So if your gut is a mess, it can actually make them problematic.
But also what we would also be looking at is that there could be a testing bias in who gets picked to be part of a study. Because like if I'm designing a study, I don't necessarily want people that are already sick. Right. Because that's going to make me look bad.
Well, 70% of Americans have some sort of chronic disease, so it's hard to find people who are not sick.
Well, that's why they pay you.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
To be part of a study.
So here's our quote for today. Test everything. Hold fast to what is good. And that's 1 Thessalonians 5:21. Test everything and hold fast to what is good. What does that mean to you?
I think that it means that there's a lot of things in, say, strictly a spiritual sense that are given to you as like, hey, here's this spiritual blessing. I got a word from God, or like whatever, or just anything. And it's like, I'm going to pray about that. I'm going to use my discernment. I'm going to ask people I trust. I'm not necessarily going to take something as just like, well, you know what? We went to that prayer service and somebody just told me something. It's from God and we're just rolling with it. So there's a level of discernment that I need to have in my spiritual life, and also in like, I would say
medical decision making.
Yes. In that I am commanded to test everything, and I'm supposed to find things that are good and hold on to them.
Yeah.
Which would imply that if something doesn't pass the sniff test, that I'm supposed to let that part go.
Yes, and our discernment also comes with hearing truth and deciding if that truth is true to you, right? And good and true to your body. And that discernment should replace the dependency that we've outsourced to outside ourselves. Like we should be able to check in and go, should I really be eating this thing? Is this really what I need? Or based on my risk factors, is this going to be the best thing for me?
Say more about that.
For example, well, I'm trying not to name things.
Okay, do you want me to help you?
Yes.
Okay, so let's say that I am in a demographic that would be statistically a very low risk, like almost zero risk for a certain health complication. Would that be something, so I'm low risk, would you be prescribing novel treatments to treat me necessarily?
No.
Would you prescribe experimental treatments to treat me?
No.
Would you prescribe a treatment that maybe didn't go through its full 10 years of testing to treat me?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Now, I mean, yeah. Or even before I was sick?
No.
Okay.
I think
there's lines. Read between them.
Yeah. I think people think that we if you're working with a natural doctor, that they have thrown logic out the window. But I really feel like this medicine is the medicine of common sense. I mean, I feel that. It's like, well, this is how the body's supposed to work.
Yeah.
Why isn't it working that way? Let's go and see what we can do to help it start working that way.
Well, how medicine was supposed to work is you, as a physician, were supposed to prescribe based on the actual patient in front of you and based on that patient's unique risk factors.
And would you say that that would be something called informed consent?
Well, informed consent's a little bit different. That would just be, I would call the aforementioned like common sense. Mm-hmm. That you're going to like treat the patient in front of you.
And well, an informed consent, taking it one step further, would be like, based on your risks and your benefits to this particular procedure or what we're going to do, here are the pluses and minuses for that. What would you like to do?
Yeah, that's informed consent. And one of the reasons that informed consent is so popular, or not popular, but so important, is because when you get away from informed consent, all of a sudden we're in kind of the territory of some of the worst dictators in history, mm-hmm. where it's like, no, you don't have the right to informed consent. And so that whole concept came out of the aftermath of those global conflicts. But let's go even a step further. Can you consent to something with coercion?
Never.
Meaning, like, if this was in a different context and it was like, hey, you need to do this thing with me or you're going to get fired. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, she said yes, she consented. Is that truly consent?
No.
That's coercion.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the case, as far as, say, like, I'm kind of making a little bit of an innuendo there.
Yes.
Like,
or, hey, if you don't do this treatment, you're going to be kicked out of my practice.
Oh, yeah. Or you don't do this treatment and you won't get to go in a restaurant, fly on an airplane. You won't get to work at this company anymore. I mean, it's kind of like...
Yeah. Or you can't or as a doctor, on the doctor side, or if you have your own spiritual beliefs around something, but the policy of the hospital is that you must agree to these things, too bad, so sad. That's not a consent on the behalf of... That's a coercion. That's a coercion. You'll lose your job. You have a reputation.
Right.
Go with what we're saying or leave. And so this is what's so difficult, is because I have a lot of empathy for physicians when they're working within that system, because part of it is they're just trying to put their head down, do their job, and retire or get a vacation or whatever they're trying to do. They're not bad people. They're just in a system where they're hooked into, and them agreeing with that system and agreeing with the rules of the system is how they survive.
Here's the problem. The kind of humanist worldview does not really have a good place, and it doesn't really have any kind of language or frameworks or models to even think about any of the stuff that we've been dealing with. And there's this, here we are, the pandemic really thrust us into the middle of more of like a different world than most people signed up for and were told. Like, most doctors didn't ever think that they would be the ones that were like, it's time to choose between your second thoughts and just like your career.
Yeah.
And yet here we are. And so honestly, stuff like that is part of the reason that we believe in God. Mm-hmm. It's because all of a sudden it's just like, okay, I'm reading this 2,000-year-old book and all of a sudden this is making sense.
Yeah.
Somebody being prepared to die, or face just public ridicule, loss of property, loss of family members because of what they believe. And all of a sudden it's just like, now I understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. Whereas in kind of like I'm just trusting the science. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And it's like, well, what? Trusting the science is anti-scientific. Well, wait, why are we hating people that I've known this guy for 20 years. He's always been a really good mm-hmm. physician. This person's been a really good nurse. And now all of a sudden we're just firing him?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Maybe can I at least hear what they have to say? No.
Trust the science.
Trust the science. Get them out.
This is the policy.
They're one of the wicked ones.
Yeah.
Like, burn the witch.
So test everything. Hold fast to what is good.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's so much more we could say about this. Totally. It's almost like this little.
It's almost like we have a podcast.
Yeah, it's almost like a.
episode.
It's almost like my wife and I wrote a book about it. So.
Okay, well, have a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the next episode.
All right. God bless you.
Bye.
Bye.